funny, she's smart, she craves chocolate every day, and she is the Greek goddess of comedy. Here is your host, Ellen Karas.
Welcome to Karis's Comedy Corner. My name is Ellen Karas, and we are Zooming again. Yes, this may be the new norm. We'll see how it goes. Very excited about the guest that we have on today, but before we get started, we need to thank our sponsors, because without the sponsors, there is no podcast. Our first sponsor is Baywalk Marketing. Go to their website, baywalk.net, for all of your advertising and marketing needs. They can help you with any type of a flyer. They can help you with your social media. They help me with mine. They can also help you analyze the demographics of your business. They're also experts in the Greek community. Go to their website, hollywoodgreeks.com, to find out where all your Greek entertainment needs are, and there will be Greek entertainment, I promise. And HellenicFestivals.org to find out where there's a Greek festival near you. Those are coming too. We thank them very much. CEO and president of that company, Dean Tripodis, we adore you. Thank you. Also, our other sponsor, Select Flex. What is it? It's an orthotic. What's an orthotic? You put it in your shoe. And as a matter of fact, I happen to have a pair right here. I use these. These are the best invention since suitcase on wheels. I was going to say sliced bread, but everybody's gluten-free, so nobody eats bread anymore, but suitcase on wheels. And let me tell you why. Because there is an adjustability. You see this? There's a little key that you put in here. Here's the key, okay? And you adjust it through the key, and right here in the arch, you can make it firm, or extra firm, depending on what your needs are. Let me tell you something. I do crazy cardio every morning. I have these in my sneakers. I walk around New York City. I have these in all my shoes. It comes in a beautiful box. I do not do this product justice, but they are a great sponsor. And here is the best part. They have a website, selectflex.com. If you go to the website, check it out. There's a 30-second video. It shows you exactly how this whole thing has been made. And you can get a 25% discount. If you type in the code FAMILY25, FAMILY 25, you get a 25% discount. They're also on Amazon. I urge you to check them out. We're all doing a lot of walking around these days, so these are great. You need them for your hips, back, knees, your entire alignment. You will thank me, and I thank them. All right. Very excited about our guest. I am a big fan of his. I did get to meet him. He did have me on a show of his. He has this huge franchise. I call it a franchise called The Great Love Debate. It's all about relationships. I'm going to let him explain exactly what he does, because I won't do that justice either. But I got to be on one of the panels when he was in New York. But he travels certainly all over the country. We'll find out if it's all over the world. He's a speaker, an author. I don't really know much more about him. Again, you know me, no preparation. We're just going to go with it. But let me tell you something. Not only are his posts on Facebook hilarious, it's almost like playing boggle, like mind boggle, because you're not quite sure where he's going. But I sincerely mean this. It got me through. It has gotten me through. We're not over it yet, although I feel like I'm over it. It has gotten me through this whole COVID lockdown quarantine craziness, because I read his posts every day and I laugh. And I love the logic going into illogic, and a twist and a turn. And I'm telling you right now, and I have a couple of examples I'm going to read later. But anyway, without further ado, please welcome my guest, Brian Howie.
How many of the women think the men need to try harder? How many of the men think the women need to make it easier?
Women look for red flags and the men look for green lights. That's why we're here.
And the biggest challenge with love dating relationships in 2017 in Los Angeles is what?
Having to put your phone down while you're on the first date.
Social media.
Grass is always greener.
You need choices. Oh, you poor thing. All right, sit down. A date used to mean I called you up, I asked you out, I picked you up.
I think people are looking to check off all these boxes instead of going with the chemistry.
And the reaction is the technology, because if I took everybody's phones away tomorrow, you're still not talking to each other. Who's been on Bumble and Tinder since we came in here tonight? All right, you're the last one to hand up. Stand up, take out your phone. All right.
Her profile says she's wild, sensitive, passionate, easygoing, and know your homonyms.
Was the last word homonym?
Yes, it was.
I have to fucking look that up.
I gotta say, subject-verb agreement turns me on so much.
You seem super lovely. But for someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously, you seem to take a lot of things very seriously.
Hi. Wow, that was a pretty good intro.
Yeah, well, I do good intro.
Wait, what was Greek, all your Greek entertainment needs? I can let my mind wander on any of that, right?
Just, singers, comedians.
Okay.
I do stand-up comedy for Greek audiences also. So sometimes they advertise me, whatever, Glenn, Taverna nights.
There you go.
We like to party.
I know.
This is brutal. I mean, this we're social people.
Well, I know. So what is happening in Greece? Did they get it hit like Italy? We didn't hear about Greece.
No, you know why? Because they somehow, and listen, I love the motherland, but as we know, there have been things over the years that, have gone awry, like, I don't know, the government collapsing perhaps. But for some reason, thank God, they were able to really get a handle on this corona from the beginning. And I have to tell you something, I just went to get my teeth cleaned and the hygienist is Greek and we were talking all about this. But they, right from the get-go, had people stay in, like super quick, masks, the washing of the hands, which again, I still don't understand why we have to tell adults this, but anyway, they did all of the protocols that we sort of did a little later on or a few weeks into it, and they just, I don't know. And listen, there are a lot of older people that live there, like Italy.
Yeah, I know.
And families like in Italy, where the grandparents live with the parents and stuff. So they managed it, and they had their percentage was very, very, very small.
Well, good.
Yeah.
But they probably won't let us go over there for a long time, right? Americans are germy.
Well, I mean, is there any travel allowed? I mean, outside of the country? I mean, can anybody come in, go out?
I was at an airport yesterday and I saw a flight leaving to Ecuador. And I'm like, I guess Ecuador is either taking people or maybe they're taking them and then quarantining them when they get there. I don't know.
Right.
It's kind of a good, screw you to the Americans, which we sort of needed, that we are not so welcome right now everywhere. It's sort of our comeuppance, which is okay.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Listen, I mean, being that I live in New York and the airports here are one of the hubs of coming from abroad. And I mean, you're much more versed on all of this than I am, but I think part of the problem, because New York got hit so hard, is because of all our international travel.
Yeah.
So, you got to pipe down. But I would have loved to, I mean, we didn't do anything, we didn't solidify, but my husband and I were talking about going to Europe. We went to Portugal last year, so we wanted to go to Spain. We had never been to Spain before. So that was on the hit list, but now.
Yeah.
Just got miles in the bank. That's all. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I'll buy a suitcase with wheels.
Anyway, I got us off track with my Greek questions.
Yeah. No, that's okay. So tell us about you. You are an enigma. Who are you?
I've been in.
You're from New York, Cross River, New York.
I'm from Westchester County. Grew up in New York. Was in New York a long, long time. I've been a writer, director, producer, sort of behind the scenes for a long time. I was in Los Angeles, and about 6 years ago, I wrote a semi-tongue-in-cheek dating book called How to Find Love in 60 Seconds. And it was sort of a satire, but it was more of a call to arms, that people make choices in these 60-second windows, a handful of time a day, that can either lead them to recognize opportunities, act on opportunities, or kill opportunities. So rather than do a book tour at the time, my agent said, there's no point in doing this with 20 people in a Barnes and Noble. Why don't you get a theater and raise some of the questions that the book raised in sort of an open town hall style forum? I think that would be interesting. I think that would be a good publicity stunt. Well, that blew up from there. It turned into the Great Love Debate. We were supposed to do that one night, and since then we have done 420 shows in 13 countries, and 150 cities, literally all over the world. And, you know, we've been to Tel Aviv, and we've been to Sydney, and we have been to Asia, and we have been to, you know, London, and we have been everywhere. Because it's the one conversation that never ends. Love, dating, sex, relationships is the one thing that anybody can be a part of. Everybody has an opinion on it. Everybody has anecdotes to share. Everybody has a history with it. And sort of we've gone all over the world, and it hasn't stopped. 6 years now.
Okay, so I sincerely mean this. I was so impressed with you when we did it at Stand Up New York.
Was it Stand Up New York? Yeah.
Stand Up New York, and then I subsequently went and saw some videos that you did. Were you a comic at some point, or
No, I
really,
wasn't. I was never, quote unquote, the talent.
Mhm.
I was sort of forced, kicking and screaming, into hosting this show. And I mean, I've always been funny, but I've been a writer. I was always somebody who's like, here's the joke, you say it. And but I understood how to sort of say things, as I assume you'll get into shortly, to get a reaction. And a lot of times when you do that, that naturally leads to funniness, and you have to be quick, and you have to be ballsy, and you have to be unafraid, because we do these shows, sometimes with 400 or 500 people, and it is a free for all, and you have to be able to sort of control a room of people who are very emotional, sometimes drunk, and the best way to do that is with humor. You get people to think, get people to relax, get people to talk, get people to share, and that's sort of the key to the whole thing.
So when you said you were a writer, director, behind the scenes, so did you go to college? Did you go to film school?
Yeah, I went to Holy Cross College in Worcester, Massachusetts. I was an English major.
Okay.
My goal was to write the great American novel. I was not talented enough, so I started writing screenplays. Then I started producing television, and I was always just sort of behind the scenes and knew how to get things done. And not until this happened was I ever had the microphone in my hand.
What did you produce? Is it anything that we know?
I did a lot of stuff for VH1. I did a lot of stuff for Lifetime. I did a lot of off-Broadway shows I did. And, directing, producing, writing, just grinding it out for 20 years or so. Never considered being sort of in front of the scenes, probably because I didn't have the confidence or I didn't have the curiosity. But a lot of things that I started to do over the last 10 or 15 years before the Great Love Debate were related to the dynamic between men and women, how we think, how we're similar, how we're different. And it's sort of, I always had a curiosity and a passion for it, and I'd always sort of created content around that, but I couldn't figure out a way, to make it all click together until, this happened. And we started, when we started Great Love Debate, we did it only in theaters, traditional theaters. And actually Adam Carolla came to me and said, this should be in comedy clubs because this is funny. And then the material here is as funny as a lot of stuff in a comedy club. So we started to shift about half our shows into sort of comedy clubs. And a lot of times it's as funny as anything in there.
And how do you find these venues, or do you have a booking agent, or
we used to find them, and now they find us. So they call, we'll get a call from the Comedy Store in Sydney, and they're like, have you played Australia? And we're like, well, it's a long way to go to Australia. And then we'll try and figure out Melbourne. And we do a lot of music venues. We do all the city winery venues around the country. We do that. Eventually the word gets out, and they call you up and they book you like a band. But early on, it was like barnstorming. It was like I would go city to city, try and find a theater, try and find a music club, try and find a comedy club, because I thought we had to learn what was going on out there. If you really wanted to drive the conversation about the stuff, you had to get into the muck, and you had to sort of figure out what was going on in each city. And each show we do is different. Each city we do is different. Every crowd is different. So what sort of love is about in Seattle is not the same as Cleveland, is not the same as Houston. And so we learned a lot by just going city to city and asking questions. And we used to say that our job was to raise the questions, but eventually we started to get some of the answers, because we've had, a couple 100,000 people participate, and you learn, sort of know where the bodies are buried.
This is so fascinating. But so when did you make a move? Because it's so funny. On your Facebook page, you have, it almost looks like two passports, and it says East Coast and West Coast.
East Coast or West Coast, and it's two East Coast or West Coast, and it's two coasters. Let's say that out loud.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, okay.
They're drink coasters.
Oh.
15 years ago, like everybody else from New York, I guess it was 2004, I got lured out there because I was directing an off-Broadway show that they wanted to bring to Los Angeles. And like every other New Yorker, you think you're going to go to Los Angeles for a couple of years and go back to New York because you can't imagine that you would like Los Angeles better. And then eventually I liked it better, and I feel guilty about that.
Mm-hmm.
so I still, but now I'm ready to go. I'm done. I'm done with LA.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I was going to say, you have color on your face, and I look like I'm anemic.
Because I was just in Florida. I got that color in Florida. So as you travel around, you sort of get used to the city you're in. But I've been on the road almost constantly for 6 years. So every city you're in, you're like, does this feel right? Could I live here? Could I live in Minneapolis? Could I live in Dallas? Could I live in Hong Kong? And so you sort of get away from that traditional mindset. I've really only lived in 3 places my whole life. I lived in Paris for a while as a kid. I lived in New York, and I lived in Los Angeles. Those are not normal places. Those are not normal sort of people. So sometimes, and I'm in a place, I'm in Atlanta, or and I explore the city. Could I see myself here? And the answer became yes more frequently over the last 5 or 6 years. And that's when I'm like, well, maybe it is time to try something new.
And what's on the list? What's on the short list?
Nashville, Sarasota, Phoenix, certain places that I'm like, I think I can make, because people now are, especially in show business, are popping up all over the place. Atlanta is a huge production hub. Half of LA has moved to Austin or Nashville or Portland over the last few years. So you don't necessarily have to be in New York or Los Angeles to sort of make it as a career, especially if you're in film and television. They're shooting more film and television in Shreveport than they are in the city of Los Angeles now, which is odd. So you sort of aren't giving it all up if you want to sort of get out of one of those 2 places.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the Great Love Debate. So, tell everybody what the setup is, what the theme is. You're obviously the host. You have different rotating panels. I was a guest on one of your panels. I don't know if you have some panelists that come back and.
We've had the show is essentially a live, feisty, interactive, town hall style debate about love, dating, sex, relationships in that particular city. So there's a lot of themes that come up obviously in every city, but we're trying to get to the crux of the disconnect of what is the issue between the men and the women, or sometimes we've done LGBT shows, we've done all kinds, but generally between the men and the women in Boston or in Providence or any of these places. And at each show we have 5 or 6 celebrities, personalities, comedians, writers, everybody on the stage who can sort of react to what the audience says. So the dialogue at these things flows from the audience to the stage, which is different than if you had sort of a seminar or a panel discussion where people on the stage talk and then the audience asks questions. It's really the other way around. And my job is to whack these seemingly reasonable people in the audience like a piñata and try and get them to open up what they love, what they hate, what they want, what they fear, and it's free flowing and it goes in all sorts of directions. No matter where we go, as I've said a million times, it pretty much comes down to this: that the women want the men to try harder, and the men want the women to make it easier. And that is the standoff. That is the disconnect in 2020. No matter where we go.
That's the commonality, right?
Commonality everywhere in the world.
The globe.
But everybody wants to blame the city that they're in for the problem. Nobody wants to take their, there's no good men here. There's too many bitchy women here. We did a show in Tel Aviv. A woman said there's too many Jews here. I'm like, well, what do you want? Everybody wants to blame the city because they do not want to take responsibility. It's not me, it's this place.
Right.
And so everybody, once a year, we put out the top, sort of top 10 list of the worst cities and the best cities. People really want their city to be the worst city. And when you tell them that it's not, they really get disappointed. They're like, dating cannot be any worse than it is in New York. And I'm like, well, it is worse in a couple places. And that really disappoints people. They want to be able to blame something.
Right. No, I understand that because at one time in my life I was single. And
yeah.
So I definitely get
We've
that.
done a lot of married shows too. We do just for married people.
Oh, do you? Oh,
And,
really?
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was more.
It has, but we've done some married, we've done gay, we've done Jewish, Asian, we've done every sort of demo to see. And if you printed out the transcripts to all of them, you wouldn't immediately know, oh, these are the married people, because it really comes down to confidence and communication, whether you're in a relationship or you're looking for a relationship.
So tell us, as of now, what are some of the worst cities and what are some of the best cities for dating?
I believe last year we named Seattle the worst city in America. They won last year, or lost one. I don't know how you look at it. Seattle's just sort of this gloomy mix of socially awkward men and aggravated women and rainwater. And it's
and now they're all in a 6-block radius.
Right now they're all 6-block radius. Past winners, losers of the worst city. Philadelphia, twice we named the worst city. The women in Philadelphia are like, the men here are such assholes, and the men are like, so? Like, they don't even know that that's a problem there. Denver, Colorado, we have named a couple times the worst city.
Really?
Everybody wants to go hiking in Denver, and the women always say if we really wanted to go hiking, they should serve wine on top of the mountain. You know, it's just it's a haze of pot and failed startup businesses, and it's thin air. It's a really not good in Denver, Colorado.
So fun.
Houston's not good. It just feels unhealthy. It just feels bad there. So a lot of cities have problems. Some cities get better. Atlanta has gotten better over the last 5 years since we've been doing the show. Some cities get worse. Everybody's always like, New York is the worst or Los Angeles is the worst. They're not, because there's still so many opportunities and the pool flips over. Like, new people come and go every day. We do a show in Detroit, and a woman stood up and she goes, nobody's going to move here. We have to figure this out. So there's a sense of the water gets stagnant if you're one of those cities, but certain cities that are vibrant, like Nashville or Washington, D.C. or Boston, where there's new people coming in from all over the world, you really can't say there's not any opportunities here.
What about Austin? Because that's always like Austin and Greenville, South Carolina, because they're always on the best places to live.
I love Greenville. The problem with Austin, as far as dating goes, is it's so fun that nobody wants to get off the ride. It's like, why? If I get in a relationship, I might miss something. That's a problem in Austin. That's a problem in Nashville. That's certainly a problem in Miami, especially for the men. You want to have a place like Washington, D.C., which I think is a good place because people will have their fun there, but eventually will settle down, if only because that looks better on a resume to say you're married. You seem more stable. That's not the most romantic reason in the world, but, they do say that. Places we go, our crowds get younger, certain places, especially in the South. There's a lot of cities in the South where if you get to 30 and you get divorced, the marriage failed. If you get to 30 and you didn't get married, you failed, or at least that's still the perception a lot of times. Really? So, sometimes we do a show in a place like Atlanta and a girl will be 23 years old and she'll say, I've been a bridesmaid 10 times. It's never going to happen for me. And I'm like, you're 23 years old. Like, calm down. But there's that element that you won't necessarily find in New York or Boston or some other places. So it's different everywhere.
What about LA? Because, there's LA, New York are so different in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
To me, one of the biggest things is, of course, how spread out it is. The other thing is the whole car thing. So like I do drive. I drive 2 places. I don't like being in a car, but I will go in a car. You know, I'm not saying I don't.
Yeah.
I'm just like people live in their cars and they go and so there's sort of that. I always found it to be a very early type of town. I always say, and it's funny because when you go out and say LA, I mean, it's such a huge geographical area. Everything is LA until you get to San Francisco. I mean, it's like it's so big.
I always say that people will drive 15 miles for a deal on a desk at IKEA, but they won't go that far for a date. You know, it's very strange.
So I would think that it's difficult. Again, it's like a very early bird type of town. I mean,
I agree with that. Well,
when I was single, I remember going out there, and it was just like there's not a club, there's not really like a bar, you know,
because of the driving. Now, what has changed the social scene in Los Angeles more than any city, I think, in America, is Uber. Because it used to be, it was too expensive to cab. You didn't want to pay for a valet. You didn't want to drive drunk. It was too spread out. Uber has changed it for single people, and it has changed it for married people. Married people now will go out, have dinner, have a bottle of wine, split it, and they don't have to worry about driving. So Uber has made a huge difference in the Los Angeles social scene. The problem with Los Angeles is the same problem in San Diego and Phoenix and a lot of the nice weather cities. Meaning that 2 things about the weather: that you can have a reasonably pleasant day, go to the gym, walk your dog, go to the beach, and not screw that up by sitting across from somebody you don't know for 45 minutes at dinner. Like, you don't want to have to shake up your comfort zone because it's too comfortable every single day. The other thing about that is it creates no sense of urgency because every single day is the same. So it's not like, oh my God, I need to date somebody because it's going to be winter in Chicago or the holidays are coming up the sense of sameness, the sense of tomorrow is just like today really doesn't push people into that uncomfortable area that you really need to go into to find somebody. You really have to get into the muck. And in those places where it's pleasant all the time, you're a lot less likely to get into the muck.
I can totally see that. The other thing that when you said warm weather, also that sort of forces you to get up earlier, right? Because the sun is shining, you want to get out, you want to do all those things.
And then you're pooped by 8.
And right, I mean, by 8, 9 o'clock, you've had a full day. I mean, if you're up at 6:30, 6, I mean, you're done by 8:30, 9 o'clock. So that's sort of always.
I think you're right. It's very. I've lived in LA 15 years. I still operate on East Coast time. Because I think that's the normal time. So it's sort of like, by 8 o'clock, I'm shot. So I couldn't imagine going out with somebody till 10:30 at night. That sounds exhausting.
And also the thing with, we said holidays. I have to say, and again, no slam, but I mean, when we go down to Florida, or I have been to LA during a holiday, like a Christmas or an after Christmas, there is nothing. There is just no, I mean, and again, I know that the bar is high here in New York. New York is Christmas. It's Mr. and Mrs. Christmas. I mean, everything is the sweaters, every store, dry cleaner, everything is decorated.
Right.
So, and then you have the cool air. So those, it is like, there's nothing Christmas about tinsel around a palm tree. That, to me, is sacrilegious. So,
I know. And it feels romantic and it's decorative and it's all that. You're not getting that in Los Angeles. You're not getting it in Miami. I was in Christmas. We had a show in Bangkok a couple years ago. They don't celebrate Christmas, but they do Christmas because they'll do all the decorations and the lights, and there'll be signs that say Feliz Navidad in Bangkok because they're like, oh, that means something to somebody in the world. And so we'll do it up for them on vacation. So, sort of like that.
As a single woman, when I was a single woman in New York, I definitely found it difficult, but I didn't think that it was the atmosphere. I thought it was just me and I mean, you had to be out there. I used to say, I remember one of my big things when I was single was like, well, nobody's going to come and meet me in my living room. Like, you
Right.
have to get out of the house.
Right.
And before I was a comic and all this, I worked in corporate America. I was a CPA. I was in finance. So I worked a lot of hours. I did date people at work. I know you're not supposed to. I mean,
Yeah, you can't do that anymore.
by the way, the era that I lived in, like I could have gotten arrested. Like, we all could have been in jail.
Yeah.
Like, there's like no way.
That's a huge change.
The Christmas parties.
Yeah, I know.
And
There's somebody in the hot conga line grinding on you. That was a thing.
And let me just say, tell anybody, millennials, that you didn't experience, you missed out. You missed out.
Yes.
Me too. Shut up.
Most people met at work. Most people met at work. So you take that away. You take away the pool of people that you're spending a big part of your out of the house time with, and you cannot date them anymore. It has made it a huge challenge.
Yeah. And so I know, again, this is something I didn't experience, but there's all the online dating, which I want to ask you about in a second. But, to me, I just like shop again, generational. I don't know what you want to call it, but I like shopping. I hate shopping online. I do obviously certain things I order from Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm tactile. I want to touch it. I want to put it on. I want to look in the mirror. I want to see how fat I look. I mean, I just want to go through the whole experience.
Right.
Same thing with going out. I couldn't even imagine. Well, first of all, my husband never left me for a younger woman, which I would totally encourage at this point. I'm done. Like, there's just no way that I would have the patience or any of that. I'd call people out on their shit. Like, I just couldn't. I don't know. I couldn't do that. But I do have friends that are single. Of my generation, and they're on it, and older. I mean, all the Floridians, all the widows.
I know we get a lot of people come to our shows who are now back out in the pool after 15, 20 years of being married. And it's not just going back to, sort of a new status as a dating person. You're going on to essentially a different planet. It is absolutely different now than it was 20 years ago in a lot of ways. How we meet people, how we interact with people, what we do with people, all of these kind of things really has changed dramatically. I used to make the joke that in New York City, your only goal on the date was to try and avoid her saying 2 stops, please, at the end in the cab. You would keep the date going as long as possible until she said 2 stops, please. And you're like, oh, damn, it's over. Well, that's gone now because there's no more cabs. Right. So it's like both of them call the Uber at the same time on the street and you can't share. It's really a different dynamic now.
And also, everything is texting, right? I mean,
yeah.
Okay, I've been around so long that I had an answering machine, okay?
Yes.
And I would call into it in the hopes that so-and-so would call me, which I have to tell you, that builds character, because you really do get you do get the rejection when the answering machine said, you have no calls. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
And also, I think communication obviously is different because, again, the guy would call us up on the phone and the waiting could kill you. I mean, it would just kill you. But now with the texting, texting is I hate texting. Of course I do it. To me, texting is, I'll be there in 5 minutes.
Right.
Do you want a salad for dinner? Or you want me to pick something up? That kind of thing. Whatever. I'm late. I'm running late. That's texting. I have a sister. I mean, I'm like, don't call me. I can't. First of all, you shouldn't be putting all this in writing.
Yeah.
And it's like, who wants to sit there and do that?
Well,
so there's that whole communication.
There's sort of a cutoff at about 35 that, women over 35 are like, I need him to call me. woman who's 24, she doesn't want any part of a phone call. She thinks it's weird. She's like, that's for emergencies. I don't know you. Why would I get on the phone? So a lot of guys are in like 32 and trying to date both sides of that. And they're like, I have no idea. It's almost like a business meeting. You need to say, my preferred method of communication is this. You really have to find that out. A lot of women say, I want to get him on the phone before I go out with him so I can figure out, if we have any sort of connection.
Right.
The problem with that is, the way our penmanship has gone downhill over the last 10 years because we don't write as much stuff out longhand. Our phone skills have gone down too because we don't do nearly as much as them. So you might be getting somebody on the phone who doesn't do that much phone on a regular basis. So they're a little nervous. They have trouble, sort of reading the flow of it. And so it can kill a lot of relationships before they even get going because that phone call doesn't flow as smoothly as you imagine it should go in your head.
Oh man, this is way over my pay grade.
Well, I always say this. So people are, sometimes I always make the joke that the best dating site is Earth. And what I mean that is the opportunities on our planet to meet and engage in real life are better than you would ever get online. So somebody said, I don't understand that everybody now, they're just swiping. And I'm like, well, we used to walk around the bar 50 times until we saw somebody we liked. That was swiping. It was the same thing. We were not better. It was just different.
That's funny. I mean, the bar scene, I like to dance. I still like to dance. And I did like going out dancing. Like that to me was a comfortable atmosphere. So at least at the end of the night, if I didn't meet anybody or nobody came over, whatever, at least I got to dance and I got to listen to music and.
Did you rule a guy out if he couldn't dance?
That's a great question. Let me think for a second.
There's a lot of discrimination against bad dancing guys.
I mean, a bad dancer is very noticeable, so it was something like I couldn't ignore it. I don't think I poo-pooed anybody.
Points for enthusiasm? Did you give points for enthusiasm, or is that not a good thing?
E for effort. That's okay. I mean, I'm a little bit more about money than I am about movement. So, that was
priorities. There you go. Yeah.
Wall Street mentality and all. But yeah, no, it was hard. I mean, and I always say this, I kissed a lot of douchebags before I met my husband. So, I definitely was out there and I had
how long have you been married?
So our anniversary is tomorrow. It's 11 years.
So and how long did you date before you got married?
I'm trying to think. We were like 10 years.
So you never even were around in like the bottle service club thing either. Do you know what that is?
No.
Where you just have like a booth with your own bottle of vodka and a bunch of people in it, and it's no longer like one-on-one in a bar talking. It's not even like that anymore. So you got out at the right time.
Oh, good. And the other thing I found as a challenge for me is you met me. I'm incredibly petite, short, shall we say. And so going to a bar, going to places that are crowded as a short person is incredibly challenging. Okay. People look, not just in a bar, but just in general in life, they look down on you. That right there is a pain in and of itself. But again, as a short woman trying to kind of get through the crowds with all these tall girls with their lanky arms and their long hair and stuff was really, it was like going to the jungle. It was hard. It was a safari. It was hard.
Did you care how tall the men were that you dated?
I didn't care. My husband is 6'2", and I'm 5 feet. Yeah. So
you got percentage of men are 6'2" and up?
I don't know how. I don't know.
7%.
Really?
Yeah. You're like, I got one. The girls all these girls are so, especially the short girls, they all want the tall guys. And the pool of guys that are tall is very, very small. Mm-hmm. They think there's lots of 6'2", 6'4" guys running around. There aren't. But it's such a requirement in a lot of women's heads that I feel so bad for a lot of the shorter men that are like 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", the women will not even give them the opportunity for those guys. It's such a thing.
All right. Well, let's not tell my husband this. Okay. We'll just.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's being high demand. Yeah. He goes back out there 6'2", you know, if he has 6'2" and a working credit card, he's home. He's home free.
With no baggage. We have no kids.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, there you go.
I know. Listen, I'm hanging on to him like grim death. Which
the tall thing is such a thing. And I'm 6 feet tall, but I was very short in high school. So I looked into the abyss. I feel for those guys all the time. And the women openly at our shows will say, I don't want to date short. You would never say out loud, like, I wouldn't date the Asian man, or I wouldn't date the Jewish guy, or I wouldn't date the black guy, or you wouldn't say, or any of these other things, but they openly will say, nope, no short guys for me. And the short guys hear this over and over and over. It's got to be incredibly frustrating. And I try and tell the women the odds and the stats that it's not, you know, only 14% of men are even 6 feet tall. That's 1 out of 7. And, you know, it's the one thing I bang in my head against the wall, that the women are like, too bad, I'll wait till I find that guy. I'll wait till I find the tall guy.
I'm going to break the news to your audience. I have 2 sisters, and my brother-in-laws are also both 6 feet. So I think, and we're all 5 feet. So
yeah, wow.
I didn't realize that we were winners. Okay.
Yes. Oh, I mean, the pool of tall men is not what you think is out there.
No, I did date one guy that was, I would say, short, you know, on the short side. Because again, I'm so short. So, you know,
right.
5'7", 5'8" is not, you know, that short to me. And 5'10", but I did date a lot of tall guys, but I did date one guy that was short, and it was a little awkward. I mean, that's not why it ended, but it was definitely,
yeah.
But I never knew that. I didn't, you know, it wasn't like that. I knew that was going to be a long-term thing, so I didn't care.
Well, it's a thing. We had a woman at our show in Los Angeles said that my husband, she goes, my ex-husband was 5'5", and a woman like gasped. She goes, well, how did that happen? And she goes, by the time I saw him standing up, I was already in love with him. And so I'm like, see, he just got the opportunity. That's why a lot of these guys, all the women think that if a guy says he's 5'11", he's really 5'9". If he says he's 6 feet, she's like, they all lie. Well, I'm not saying they should lie, but they're fudging their resume to get the interview. That's the way I look at it. They just want the opportunity, because so many women will just rule out because they just have this fantasy in their head that might not exist. And a lot of men do the same thing too. You know, you come up with these 100 check boxes that you think if you fulfill all the things, then you found the right person. And if you haven't found them, well, it's just because I haven't met that person who checks all the boxes yet. It pushes the responsibility away from you, and that's a mistake.
I mean, let me tell you something. First of all, your business model, your plan of attack, your, you know, who's going to come to the show, you're a marketing genius as far as I'm concerned, because you are never going to run out of people. I mean,
oh yeah, no, that's true. We'll never run out of people, and I'll never solve it.
I mean, you know, an asteroid has to hit the Earth for you not to do your show. That's incredible. What's sort of, since I'm so out of this loop, what sort of your maybe the sort of good news, bad news about dating online? You know, what would you give a newly single or a person that's been doing this for a while, you know, advice is certain online?
I think the upside of online dating is that I believe if you do it right and you understand what you're trying to do, which is to find out if there is a possible connection here and then quickly move it offline. You're not looking for a pen pal here, but a lot of women, you know, say now, and a lot of men say now, like, I don't know the person that I'm meeting online as well as I used to know the people that I met in the bars. And I'm always like, all you knew about the guy in the bar was he had a pen and a napkin at 2 o'clock in the morning and took your number. Like, you didn't know anything about that guy. And you gave that guy your address. You had him pick you up. You had him do all those things. So that's nonsense. Online dating gives you, if you do it right, we always say get your head out of your apps, and you really should meet people out in the world. But if online dating is a good way to connect with a lot of people who you wouldn't normally connect with otherwise. And you're able to do so in a safe sort of environment where you can delete them or you can get rid of them if you don't want to. So if you do it right and you're not, and you keep it fun and you keep it playful and you basically understand, like, I'm just trying to connect with somebody with the goal of meeting offline, I think you can, meet just as many people online as you could offline. There used to be a stigma about it. That's gone. It's the number 2 way that people meet and fall in love now. Number 1 is still like your real social network and your real sort of group of friends. But number 2 is online dating. So you can't dismiss it. You also shouldn't only online date. You should do both. You should sort of diversify your dating portfolio for you Wall Streeters out there. You should, look to meet somebody at Whole Foods, and you should look to meet somebody on OkCupid and everywhere in between. That you have to understand that there are so many opportunities. You just have to know how to look for them, and most importantly, have a really positive attitude about it. A lot of people get so beaten down or they get so depressed, and I think the good thing is that it's going to come out of this lockdown is that I don't think people are going to rush into large group gatherings anytime soon. Protests and Trump rallies aside, I think people are going to want to start with one-on-one small group things. I think that will lead to a lot of dates that might not have that people have sort of gotten away from because it's sort of a hangout culture. You miss that. It's like text me, meet up, hang out. Here's the bar we'll be at. There's not a lot of actual dating going on over the last couple of years. I think we're going to get back to that once the sort of lights come back on.
Thank you. That's a great segue. So what's it been like? Have people reached out to you?
Yeah, I've done a lot of media on it. People have asking. My advice to people was just don't date during this. That's what I really believe. Because you're dating from a negative space, meaning I'm dating because I'm locked in here. All of the traditional sort of isolated, weird environment things don't tend to work out long term. Meeting somebody on spring break doesn't work out long term. Meeting somebody on The Bachelor doesn't work out long term. There's a lot of things where it's an unnatural, you're coming from a strange place. I said use this opportunity to sort of improve yourself, do all those things, and come back out. Now, it's gone on a lot longer than a lot of people anticipated. So people have been doing these Zoom dates and they have been doing these online dates. And I think it's an opportunity to sort of hone your interests. What do I like to talk about? What am I curious about? What am I hoping to find out from another person? And a lot of time that gets lost in, do you want to split an appetizer? Or do you want to have another drink? So getting back to, I want to learn about this person, I think that's a good thing that's coming out of this.
I've had many people say to me, and as a matter of fact, I had a comic on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he brought it up on the podcast, so I'll say it. He's like, I'm single, I've been, I'm lonely, I've been quarantining and all this. And I all kidding aside, even though my husband and I ran out of things to talk about after the first week, I can't imagine what that would be like if I was here day after day by myself. And also, and you'll appreciate this based on your post, which we have to get to. There are different extremes of how people are taking in this COVID. Some people are like, all right, I did my thing. I'm okay. I like me.
Right.
I'm over it. I'm over it. I'll do the mask. I'll be a good citizen, but
right.
I'm stopping to see my friends. I've already went to my cousins, my sisters, my friends. I have dinner, I'm doing it. Whatever I can do, I'm doing. And then there's some people that still, so all these months later, even in New York, where it's, obviously it's nothing like it was at the start, are like, I'm not going out, I can't go out, I can't, for whatever their reasons is. And sometimes it's not necessarily health. I get that, I get that vulnerability, but if you really have no issues, it's
that,
sort of like
it is.
So it's
I had it. I had it 6 months ago. Is that going to be a plus in the dating world where I have the antibodies, but it's sort of when two people are going to go out, are we showing up in masks? Are we hugging when we first meet? There's a lot of new sort of things that you have to communicate about, but I think that's a good thing. You know, I think people are really judgy too much on, does this person like Trump right off the bat? What are your political views? What are your views on COVID? Like, there's too much seriousness that people are leading with now, and it's really, the playful has gotten away from dating, and I think people have to get back to that, but that's hard to do, like you said, in a place like New York, where sirens were going off all the time for months and months.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I've been traveling around the country recently, and a lot of places, not that they're not taking it seriously, but you can forget about it a lot quicker. Like, you can be seated in a restaurant and you can, it's not so oppressive the way it is in Chicago, Boston, New York, and even Los Angeles, that you're not always thinking about COVID. And so I think slowly, and as the weather got nicer, I think people started to come out of their shell. There's still some communication that has to be done about this, where you want to know that you're being safe. People want to know you're not a germy person. People want to know you wash your hands. People want to know you sanitize. But we didn't 6 years ago. People would just be drunk in a bar making out. You didn't even know this guy, you know? And
listen,
so,
you know what? I want to send my sympathies to all the 20-somethings. They're not going to know what it's like to make out with a stranger in a bar. Many times over. So I don't know. Like, well, again, what would you do? I mean, what do you know, what, like, when it comes
I wonder, because
with somebody, it's like, what do you do?
One of
You're
the
not going to do it obviously as quickly as you used to do.
Well, I don't know, but the sort of the special part of dating in New York is that 3 a.m. dive bar kissing against a jukebox. Like, that's a big part of dating culture. I think that there's going to be communication. I'm old enough, I don't know if you're old enough to remember when dating happened when AIDS came along. And I'm not saying that this is as serious as that, but there was a lot of communication, and we had to make different arrangements then in terms of what we were doing and who we were doing it with, and how there was just an extra beat of thought in all of those kind of things, until you didn't have to think all the time about it. It just became a natural sort of process. Now, you know, we could be totally over COVID, and people are going to start thinking about the flu differently now in the fall, because we never really knew the flu numbers before, and the flu numbers seem terrible. And so I'm like, wow, everybody had the flu. People are dying from the flu. I don't know. So are we going to turn into long-term germaphobes? I don't know. What this has done, though, sort of the coming storm in the dating world for the last 5 years, is that technology was going to replace the satisfaction. You were going to be able to put on a helmet, have somebody who looks just like Ariana Grande talk to you, give you a reasonably satisfying sexual experience. That was the coming storm. You wouldn't have to spend money. You weren't going to get your heart broken. It was this virtual dating coming. What I think this experience has done is make people realize it's not as good. This isn't as good. And no offense, and I'm having a wonderful time doing this. It's not the same as being in a room and connecting and laughing and sharing and all that together. And I think this will make us appreciate that in a way that we're like, this is fine. I can get this. I don't have to go to Tahiti. I can virtually go because this app is really cool. And I think this experience made us remember the things we liked about other human beings.
I completely agree with that. I love that. I love the way that you said that and you related it to dating. And I think about that in terms of just simple things like, you know, again, when I finally, I think we went to my cousins in Westchester. I think that was the first house we went to. They were cool without the mask. We were cool without the mask. And I enjoyed so much just being in their backyard. And we got Greek food and we ate and we played with the kids. I was so, I had wine and feta, and I was just like, it was so, everything tasted better. Everything just felt better. We were gossiping. I mean, it was just, I loved it.
We are not.
Felt like, I'm sorry, just, it almost felt like when I was growing up, as we get older, of course, we go back into retrospect and stuff. And I think about our parents, and I'm friends with some grammar school friends, and we talk about this all the time. Back in the day when we were kids and we were allowed to just go out and come back when it was dark.
Yes, I know.
Our parents would be, they'd go to somebody's house, they'd be on the deck, they'd smoke a million cigarettes, they would laugh. Who knows what they were laughing at, and tell stories. And it was just such a nice time. And we didn't have to get a clown and an entertainer and a balloons. And, it's like we just entertained ourselves. And
yeah.
Sort of.
I think we're not wired to go months without a hug.
Mm.
I don't think we're designed that way as humans, regardless of you being in a relationship, like just some kind of contact. I get why it's hard for prisoners, for a long, long time, to that isolation and not being able to do what you want to do. Like a lot of us went through this, and just not being able to, people did do the Zoom Friday night happy hour things. It's not as good. I think that's a good thing that's come out of this. And I think we'll appreciate our interactions more now. I think that's a plus.
Yeah. Stand-up comedy. It's not, and I did this, have done the Zoom shows, and, I did it, but it's not the same. Theater, they're going to do live streaming of Hamilton.
Yeah.
July 3rd and whatever, which I'm definitely going to watch, but I did go see The Real Thing, and it's not going to be The Real Thing, but kudos.
That's the thing of all, because I get asked that a lot.
Theater.
Is there any industries or anything that you're really, really worried about? And I'm really worried about Broadway.
Right.
The idea of, because their business model is such that you can't play a half full house. Right. There, you have got to sell something like 75% of your tickets to break even in a Broadway theater. So the idea of that many people crowding in a theater indoors, losing a lot of foreign tourists who are not anxious to come into New York City, and the amount of money you have to put up to launch a Broadway show, to take that risk, I don't know if that's going to happen for a long, long time. Comedy shows, I think, are starting. We're booked for some comedy clubs coming up. Texas, Raleigh, certainly. That might have changed as we do this, but they're coming back. They can space them out. We can do some things with that theater setting. That's going to be a tough one.
I have this conversation all the time, because those margins on Broadway are very thin, and for every Hamilton and Evan Hansen, those are anomalies.
They open and they close in a week with bad reviews,
Right, and they're not going to take out seats. It just doesn't work that way. So I completely agree with you, and it's really going to hit the city. Obviously, lots of cities are going to feel it in other ways, but New York is really about tourism. People come here specifically for the entertainment, for the restaurant, and everything. It's the restaurants, it's the hotels, it's the Uber driver.
And the restaurants in New York City are so packed with the tables are so close to each other. It's an uncomfortable dining experience in New York City. I'll say that, even at the best of times. You're 2 inches away, especially on a date. Yes. You're 2 inches away from people next to you. It's a hard place to go on a dinner date in New York City.
Yes,
sometimes those tables out in New York City, it's hard to imagine how that's going to work. But maybe you can get a cheap deal on an apartment now there. I don't know.
Well, I would think that because there's been a bit of a mass exodus.
Yeah.
So, and real estate always lags, so you have to wait. But I would imagine in like 4 to 6 months, depending on what how this whole thing plays out. I will say I live on the Upper East Side, but this is, I've been to the West Side. I was just in Midtown. There are so many retail vacancies. It is I would say this store-wise storefront, it's half empty. And to top it all off, all the looting, they went down to Soho, they destroyed it. It makes me sick.
And a lot of retail wasn't doing great to begin with anyway, because it all sort of went offline. But yeah, I know it's going to be interesting how stuff shakes out.
And in Los Angeles, you guys have a tremendous homeless problem as well. San Francisco, and Seattle. It's really weird how everything just came tumbling down at once, almost like planned and contrived. I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying it was just so. It feels just too coincidental that all of this is happening at the same time in an election year.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm of ick.
I know. I don't know, but I want to hang on a second. Are you going to print some more? Because okay. That's my tall husband, by the way. You can see
he's got a tall shadow behind you.
Shadow in the background. Okay. All right. I have to. Okay, listen, everybody. Do you take random friends or?
Yes, I do.
All right. Your posts are absolutely like the best posts. Absolutely. Okay. Here was one from a couple days ago. I know people don't like to focus on the declining COVID daily death rate because that hurts the hysterical narrative. But it's amazing how it began to dramatically go down as soon as Cuomo and company stopped shoving sick patients back into nursing homes to die. And doctors began thinking twice before sticking everyone who came in the door on a ventilator. But here are 3 fun flu facts for the panic porn crowd. I love your choice of words. More people in the U.S. died on June 19th, 20th, and 21st of last year from off-season flu illnesses than died on the comparable 3 days this year from COVID. Yet, too, yes, the average age of June COVID cases has dropped below 50, but you are 4 times more likely to be hospitalized from the flu if you are below 50 than from COVID. Almost every new case is either asymptomatic or self-resolving, despite the shrieking screams about a healthy outlier dropping dead at 23. Number 3. Despite California being added to the hot spot list, which Arizona was number 1 on last week, suddenly not as popular, there were 230% more people in California hospitalized from the flu through this date in June 2019 than from COVID in June 2020. Imagine if CNN ran a comparable ticker last year. What then? Oh, yeah, and wear a mask because you don't want to catch the flu either. Okay, yeah. This is just a...
I'm fascinated. I'm not trying. I know we're not supposed to compare the two. I'm fascinated by the flu because we do have a vaccine, and 80 million people got the flu last year, even with the vaccine, and that many people are dying from the flu. I don't personally know anybody who died from the flu, but apparently a lot of people die from the flu. So I'm like, why can't we talk about the amazingness of the flu, the flu stats without somebody thinking that you're making light of COVID? I think that's weird. I just have a lot of flu questions. And so the thing that I can compare it to, like, we know flu and we know pneumonia, but if we ran a ticker on CNN, like right now the number is 2 million as we tape this of COVID. And maybe it's higher, maybe but it's 2 million. It's 80 million people get the flu every year. That is astonishing to me. We don't scream that. We don't run that ticker. But what if we did? Would we never go out of the house if we did every single respiratory or other ailment of what you could get or what? I mean, this is a hypochondriac's nightmare. Like, I can't even imagine what this be like, or a germaphobe. But the constantly, like, here's the cases, here's the numbers, here's the deaths, I don't understand why the negativity is still leading. As we record this, the deaths are going down every single day, and all we hear is cases rising, everybody. I don't understand why we can't get good news. I don't understand why it's not socially acceptable to say out loud. If you say anything positive out loud, they think that you're working for the Trump campaign. It's crazy that you can't logically. What I try and do with any conversation I have is to try and get people to think and try and get people to engage and I'm not interested in saying something and getting a bunch of, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't necessarily care about that. I want people to look at it differently than maybe they did before I said it or wrote it or any of those kind of things. A lot of people are not prepared to have those conversations because they're uncomfortable, and the comfortable, lazy way to do it is be like, Trump sucks, we're all going to die. And I'm like, I think we need to go deeper than that,
First of all, this has so much, it has numbers, which I love, percentages, comparisons, and facts. And I love all that. And you've been writing every day, you write some type of a theme about the hysteria and stuff. And I think, from what I read from your posts, I think a lot along your line. You articulated 1,000 times better than I ever could, but it was the same thing. It was like, in the beginning, you didn't know. It was the unknown. You took it seriously. You went through the protocol, but as things started to change, the whole point of the shutdown was so the hospitals
Yes.
can get a handle on, which I'm totally, of course, we all are.
We all are.
Everybody wanted
Yes.
that. But once that was certainly getting rectified, and here in New York, and again, I'm not getting political, I'm just stating a fact. Trump did send a big ship. He had beds, respirators, and look, the problem is that the people that hate him will never, they go, no, even if it's a fact, no,
Right.
he didn't do that. Okay,
Right.
I'm not going to argue with you. I won't argue with you. He sent respirators, and also they opened up the Javits Center. And as we know now, they did not use it. And again, that's fine. I guess if it should be filled with the brim with sick people, not used at all. Obviously, I want what's good, but once we didn't need all of that, and things again started to get better, and then there's the whole nursing thing that Cuomo wants to blame everybody but himself about, take any responsibility.
Oh my God, it's insane.
It's just ridiculous.
You can, people out there, you cannot like Trump and still think Cuomo did a bad job. It doesn't have to be like Trump is the only bad one and everybody else is fine. Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand the need for hysteria. I don't understand the need that people don't want positive news. And there just aren't that many sources to get that anymore. And as I always say, the Great Love Debate, we're selling hope here. And I think that goes a long way. I think if people, at the height of the lockdown, I wanted to hear, we're locking down and it's working.
Right.
You didn't hear that. You were like, you better lock down or more people are going to die.
Right.
Like it was just the narrative was always so negative. I wanted to be patted on the back. When things were going well in California, I wanted to hear, good job, California. And maybe that's my neediness, but we weren't hearing that enough. We were hearing like, well, it's only good there because of this, this, and this. I think people want to know that they were being noticed for whatever sacrifices they were being made, that their sacrifices mattered, that it wasn't just every day it was, how did the federal government screw up and how did this? And I think that's wrong. And I think that people need to have, sort of different perspectives to at least think about other sides of this thing. It can't be just so black and white, good and bad all the time.
Do you think that the economic shutdown was necessary, and if you did, like, how long? Like, I think we're way past, like, we should not be where we are. There was no reason why some of these stores couldn't open up, even if they, just like a grocery store, even if they let, X amount of people in.
The logic is, you can't tell me if I owned a business that people can go to Walmart and they can't come to my small version of Walmart. Right. I don't understand that. I think it's too soon to tell if it mattered or not. I mean, everybody from the beginning, they were like, oh, trust the data, trust the science. There was no data, there was no science. It was guessing, and it was using an example from 102 years ago to be like, well, this is what they did then, and it worked 1918. That was before, antibiotics. Like, we didn't know, like, that was our example. Right. I don't know why people thought, we should listen to some people, but it shouldn't be automatic. So I was saying this earlier today. Conspiracy theories tend to rise up in the absence of solid information. So you can't just blame all the kooks for the conspiracy theorists and all this, because there wasn't an alternative that people could trust. And if there was an alternative that people could say, yeah, I absolutely know that that's true, this happened, I believe that. But because there was so much guesswork and so many radical models and so many wear the mask, don't wear the mask, the information wasn't solid enough for people to get their head around it and their hands on it. So then, especially in an age of social media and the internet, everybody's developing their own theories and everybody wants to play expert and everybody wants to, because there are no experts on this. And that's a unique challenge. And I don't know if that's going to be the case every time something comes up. Can you imagine if the Kennedy assassination happened in a Twitter world? I mean, I can't even imagine, or a Facebook world, or anything, any event from the last, 50 years.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's interesting though, how, like you said, if you don't wear a mask, you're a Trump supporter. If you do wear a mask, you're for Joe Biden. I mean, it's just insanity what's going on. And I don't do politics, not because I don't have an opinion, because I do, but I avoid it because, first of all, I would rather have a conversation with somebody than go on social media and, start, and all that, and all that. I did that in the very, very, very beginning, and that was it. I lost a couple of days, and I go, I'm out. There's no way I'm sitting here doing this. And just the anger, and then just the if you don't wear a mask, you're an asshole. If you vote for Trump, or if you like what he said 5 minutes ago, you're stupid. It's like you can't. So if I don't agree with your opinion, then
I've had to dive a little bit more deeply into some of the political stuff than I ordinarily would because of how it's trickled into dating. It is such a prevalent thing all the time now. Okay, I mentioned this on my podcast. Okay, Cupid last week or the week before is letting users, for those who don't know, it's a dating app, dating site, is letting users like put a Black Lives Matter badge on their dating profile, which on the surface is fine and whatever. But if you don't put it on there just because you want to keep that stuff private to strangers, you're somehow being judged. Like that old Seinfeld thing. You don't wear the ribbon, that old thing. It's the same thing now. Like people have to lead with, what do you believe? Who do you stand? Like, and it's gotten away from sort of, can we get some nachos?
Everything on my phone, on Instagram, which I do like beauty products. I'm very into like my cardio workout, some influencers, foods, this and that. Everything has some type. Black Lives Matter. I just want to see what the latest moisturizer is. Like that's all. I just want to have a little fun. I don't need you.
Yeah.
And don't want me to donate and this and that. And I'll just make my statement right here. I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Washington Heights. You can't get any more diverse than that. I'm Greek. I speak Greek. All my grandparents came here from Greece and Cyprus. I grew up in an ethnic home. My father was a gym teacher in Harlem for 20 years. And he taught a lot of other, boys clubs and stuff like that. And I'm way into adulthood, way into adulthood. I don't want to be lectured by 28-year-old Jessica who came from Kansas, right? And she's got a chip on her shoulder because her uncle touched her at a party in the barn. I don't give a shit, okay? Yeah. And, it's very interesting because I feel like some of these people that are so angry that have come here in New York are not from here because we all live next to each other. So treat people with respect. That's my mantra. So
are people in the comedy world?
What part?
Are in the comedy world, is it frustrating that the line of funny offensive now is not, it used to be, it's up to you to figure it out, let the audience figure it out, that now it's this sort of cancel culture, like you can't make certain jokes anymore?
Listen, I am not for cancel culture for anybody. Anybody, whether I agree with you, whether I do, it doesn't matter. What's current, Jimmy Kimmel this week was the new guy. And it was funny because I can't remember if you responded, but I wrote a poll. I'll do these things for fun, back or done. And, of course, everybody had a different done. Why? He's liberal, this and that. No way. He's a liberal. He'll get away with it. All this stuff. Me personally, I think he's taking this hiatus, which is purposeful. He said vacation, his kids, all that stuff. I also think that these talk shows better get their act together because Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, they all look like they just cleaned their garage and they're like, oh, I got to do the show. I mean, comb your hair, put on a shirt for God's sakes. It's disgusting. You're a late night talk show. There has only been like 10 of you ever. Right.
Put a suit on.
Show some respect. So I think they're waiting to see, time wise, but ABC has invested a lot of money in Kimmel. I mean, he
Yeah.
is their Johnny Carson.
Yes.
So I don't think they're going to discard him as quickly as people think.
Yeah.
And just to get to what he did, okay. We
It
can't
was a different time.
You can't go back
I
to
know.
1992, 80, 2005, whatever, and say this was wrong. That is horrible. I mean,
Well, that's why I appreciate the way Howard Stern handled it. He's like, yeah, I was an idiot. I thought it was funny. What do you want me to do about it?
you know
I can't
what?
go back.
You don't have to. I mean, I'm okay. I'm personally okay with saying I was in. This is what we did.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not acceptable. We've evolved. We
Yeah.
know better, and that's it.
Yeah, we drove drunk a lot back in the day. Like we did. We don't feel good about it. I don't know. Yeah, all of it. Like it was terrible. It was terrible waking up, being like, where did I drive? Like it was terrible. Don't feel good about it. Not happy, but it did happen. Like I can't, you learn from it and you grow from it, but you can't, apologize for something that was common then.
All of a sudden, everybody's Mother Teresa, okay? No one's done a fucking thing. Everybody has just walked a straight line, and they've all been, give me a break. And you know what, 28-year-old Jessica? In 20 years, I hope somebody goes through your freaking diary and starts finding out all the bad things that you did. I can't stand it anymore.
I know. They don't understand people do grow up, and people do evolve, and people do change, and a lot of bad people turn good and a lot of good people turn bad.
Right.
And who you were 8, 10, 15 years ago shouldn't speak that much to who you are tomorrow.
Right. Meanwhile, back at the ranch in New York City, they let out prisoners. That's okay. Apparently, if you rape a woman, that's forgivable. But Jimmy Kimmel does a skit from 10 years ago, and the guy's excoriated. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I know. I mean, you get to a certain level of fame, and people want to take you out. I'm
going to tell you, and you'll appreciate this. Back, it's at least a good 10 years now. And I know we'll wrap this up. You probably have to go. I have to go through 2 more of your comments. But back when the tsunami was it in Bali, I believe, that big, huge tsunami, like around Christmas time. And Gilbert Gottfried, okay, who was like, everybody loved Gilbert Gottfried, made a joke. He made some joke. I forgot what it was. And he did those Aflac commercials, and he got fired. And I remember saying, because you're a little psychic too, I remember saying to myself, this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the end. And that was like, I felt like that set the precedent, and all of a sudden it was this, blah, blah, blah. And all these years later, Kevin Hart said this one said that. Listen, I mean, I take dance class, and the girls are young. The music that I listen to, I love old disco. I'm an old disco person. But the music, the words, aside from the fact that I can't stand the beat, all right, fine. But the words are offensive. And I'm a comedian, and I have a high tolerance. I can't stand it. But for some reason, we don't talk about that.
I know. It's bad. I mean, if we get to a point where people can't take chances, then we're really limiting our creativity, because creativity is about taking chances, and you have to be able to do that. You got to push the envelope to get anywhere, and I'm worried that we are limiting that.
Right. All right. I want to read 2 more of your posts. These are a little shorter. If you're not going out to eat, refusing to get on a plane, avoiding the store, or simply staying indoors under the bed, that's absolutely fine. But just remember this. There has never been a safer time in your entire life to do any of those things. And if you're under 60, you're more likely to end up in a hospital from driving to go do any of those things than you are from doing any of those things. This is the brilliance of Brian Howard.
That is true.
Like,
if people have not been out to eat yet, or have not been on an airplane yet, the level of cleanliness and sanitation now is unprecedented. We used to get on just the germiest airplanes and the germiest restaurants, and we assumed they ran the dishwasher, but we didn't really know, and we were fine with it. So if people like, you were going to get a lot of germs then. So people need to understand that most businesses are going out of their way to make you feel as safe as possible, to make it be as sanitized as possible. And you have to take advantage of that, because in 6 months, it probably won't be like that anymore.
I rode the New York City subway the other day for the first time since mid-March. I was amazed, okay, because that is the petri dish of all petri dishes.
Yeah. They finally cleaned it after 100
I
years.
couldn't believe it. And people were like shocked. You know, it's like, oh, they're cleaning the subway. Yeah, right, because it's never happened ever in the history of the subway.
We all, have seen the videos where they run a black light over a hotel room and how gross it is. Now the hotel rooms have like a seal on the door that once you like clean by Lysol, like all sanitized, clean remote, clean everything. It's delightful out there. Take advantage of it while we have it.
I am a germaphobe. I am one of these people, like, I get into a restaurant, I go right to the restroom to wash my hands, regardless if I just wash my hands right before I went to it. It doesn't matter. I don't touch food. If I touch money, I wash my hands. I mean, I'm a big hand washer. So this is like my Christmas.
We do need, especially the kids, we need some germs.
Right.
We can't become so sanitized that every little thing's going to make us sick.
No. Right. No. And that's why I'm about going outside. And that's why after a point, I'm like, no. Staying in here is going to make me sick.
It is. You got to go out and breathe that dirty New York City air.
All right. Here's the last one. And this made me laugh. This was on Sunday. There were some dicey moments in my 20s, a few scares in my 30s, but fortunately I made it through and am very happy and extremely relieved to spend another year not celebrating Father's Day.
It is real. I know people think there's something wrong with you if you are like, this is awesome. I can do anything I want. I don't have to do this. Like, I make a lot of jokes about it, but I'm sorry. My parents didn't seem to enjoy parenting all that much. So, why? It just seems terrible to me, especially now. You're trying to keep 3 kids clean and you got them home all the time.
And schooled.
I feel like I lucked out in life so far. Yeah.
No, it's funny. So I have 5 nieces and nephews, 3 and 2, and obviously friends and hearing about the schooling, I definitely said out loud, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I don't have kids." Like out loud, I said it. I could I
know.
I would have done.
Yeah, and even the people who have them, they should be advertising vasectomies on TV regularly now. Like, I don't think anybody wants any more kids. Like, I think it's a thing. Yeah, I know. I say it out loud a lot, and people think there's something wrong with me. I'm fine with that.
You're fine.
I'm good.
I could talk to you for hours. I think you're fascinating. I think you're incredibly talented. Tell everybody where they can find you, look you up, and
go to greatlovedebate.com. We'll have our schedule of the cities. Hopefully, we will be rolling out in the summer and the fall live shows. And listen to our podcast, Great Love Debate with Brian Howie. We have the world's #1 dating and relationship podcast. We have a lot of celebrities on there. We tackle all this things. It's really funny. It's really fun. And it's relatable to even married people.
All right.
Thank you, Alan.
I didn't even ask you, are you dating? Are you
Yeah, I'm good.
What's your status? I'm good.
No kids.
No kids. That's it.
Yes.
That's all okay. All right. I didn't think I was going to get that out of you, but that's okay. That's okay. I got a lot. Thank you for taking
Thank you for having me. Stay safe.
Okay,
good luck,
great.
everybody.
All right, we'll be in touch. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.